Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater. And back in 1999, when I was 17 years old, a couple of my friends and I decided to cut class early one Friday afternoon and head over to the local theater to see the very first showing of Pokemon the first movie. That's right. We were there, three 17-year-olds amongst a sea of children and their parental guardians watching this film for the first time. And back in 1999, I'm not going to lie, I really liked the movie. And since then, I've watched it a few more times. And while I still love the aesthetic and I loved what they did with it and how much it referenced the show and everything that felt great about it, I can honestly say that Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution was completely unnecessary, and it just was not a fun experience for me. And I hate to say that because I really do like the movie, even if I feel the story back then and now, even though it's been kind of updated, is still ultimately pretty bad. I can still find a lot to love about the movie, but it's one of those things where now that I've seen Evolution, I don't really have a desire to ever watch it again. And if it ever comes up to watch Pokemon the first movie, I will just go back and find the 1999 original because I think that is still the overall better experience. So the difference, obviously, between the original and this one, outside of being, 2 decades, is the fact that the updated animation and the graphics are way cool, way better this time around. When you look at this, like the Pokemon look fantastic. They do. They look amazing. And that was actually one of the cooler things I wanted to see when I first heard that this particular movie was being made. But even though the Pokemon looked pretty cool, the humans looked pretty bad, right? Like their modeling was not very good. It just felt weird every time they talked. And a lot of that had to do also with very poor dubbing, because obviously this was modeled around Japanese voices, and it's not just the mouse going up, down, up, down, up, down. There's emotion this time around. And obviously some of the things didn't quite match up in the audio dubbing of this particular transfer and, or this localization really. And I just that took me out of a couple scenes, and I was like, oh, really? Like, okay. Like you figure they would have put a little bit more work into this, but they didn't. Another thing I will say one thing I liked though was that they changed up, not that they changed, but they expanded upon Mewtwo's motivation, his opening story, giving him a reason why he did what he did. And I did actually enjoy that addition. They needed to find a couple little ways to kind of stretch the movie out because the original was actually like really freaking short. And as a result of that, like they padded it out by having that 20 million or that 20-minute long A Day in the Life of a Pokemon or whatever short film that didn't really hold up over time. It wears out its welcome pretty damn quick. But, it was, it's still kind of fun in its own right, but it's still like, okay, once a decade is fine to watch this thing. But the movie, they had to make it an hour and a half. And so they expanded upon it a little bit, and I did appreciate that. But at the same time, I still feel like the overall story it didn't hold up. It didn't age well, in my opinion. And again, look, I'm coming at this I'm 37, right? I turned 38 in 4 weeks. And, I saw this when I was 17. And I was a Pokemon fan of the original series back in the day, and I played the games. I had the card games. I had the GBA or the Game Boy with Pokemon Yellow. I played a lot of that stuff back in the day. And so for me, coming in this from a decades old Pokemon fan, this movie just didn't really wow me in the ways that I hope it was. Again, a lot of it was also the voice acting. Like I'm so used to the original voice actors, and I know they got people that tried to sound like them. They got people that very much tried to sound like them, and that's a good thing. But when I, think back to the show and what I love about it and the characters and what I love about the characters, a lot of that was their voices and their performance, and that was gone. It was a noticeable difference. It was a noticeable change. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Again, I would just rather go back and watch the original. And that could just, again, like I said, like there's a 20-year gap. This particular movie isn't made for me. It's not made for me. It's made for like, not even my kids who are like 2 and 6 years old, or 6 months old. Cause my daughter was watching it and she was liking the Pokemon. And when they were getting into fights, she was like, oh no, she didn't want to see any of them get hurt and she was enjoying it. But then about halfway through, she tuned out, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is an hour and a half long movie. Obviously, it's not all going to be for her. And if you're a younger kid, you know, that's grown up with Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch or whatever it might be, then this could be something that's going to come across as absolutely wholly new to you because you probably didn't either see the first movie or it's just so different where it's not necessarily going to register. And the thing is like I just still prefer the animation from the original because in the opening fight scene in the original animated movie when Bulbasaur was fighting, the animation looked pretty spiffy for the 90s. It looked pretty crisp. It looked pretty clear. They added in a lot of action. They had the music playing. There was like a lot of nice effects in that sequence. And this one was just like some random dude shows up and it starts like throwing out Pokemon at Ash, and they fight. And I'm like, okay. You know, I mean, I remember that was kind of in the original too, but I was just like, okay. Like right off the bat, I was like, oh, no, darn it. You know, so I wasn't super impressed with this project. Like, I get why they did it. They wanted to do something like this. This is the 22nd animated Pokemon movie, according to my sister, at least. And I just was like, I was excited to check it out. I woke up this morning and I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to watch it. I remember the old one because I saw it a few years ago. Fathom Events did a one night screening of the original Pokemon movie that my sister and I went to. And she went like in a Pikachu onesie, which I was a bit embarrassed by, but you know, at the same time, no one there cared because everyone in that theater was there to watch Pokemon, and she got compliments on that onesie. So there are a lot of old school Pokemon fans who still grew up watching it, who would probably want to watch this. And I honestly feel like their response is going to be very similar to my response, which ultimately was just kind of like, oh yeah, that didn't really do anything for me at all. So it's a nice effort. It's a valiant effort to modernize it. It doesn't compare to the original. It just doesn't compare to the original. It's just one of those things where it's like you almost feel like it's a bit of a soulless cash grab. And it just, at the end of the day, it's a one-time watch for me. I would much rather go back to the original. I love watching the Indigo League series that's on Netflix because it is like going back to my childhood. And I'll admit, that's why I like it better. It's like cool to go back and watch that. Like my younger brother likes that kind of stuff too. And we talk about it occasionally. And the movie is so self-referential to that original series that this new one still tries to play upon a lot of those jokes, and they just don't land because they're not done with the same voice actors, they're not done with the same animation team, they're not done with the same panache really that was before. And I feel it's like there is so much that is lost in translation. So valiant effort. I would much rather have a Detective Pikachu 2, which I thought that movie was great and I loved it. I'd much rather have something like that or something that is wholly original with like a new cast of characters. But when you want to bring back Ash, Misty, and Brock, and you want to retell that story from 20 years ago, and you want to update the animation to make it look spiffy and cool, like I get that. But if you're not going to pull from the same audio tracks, or you're not going to have the same kind of heart that went into that one, I think fans are going to ultimately look at it and go, no, I'm good. But you could disagree with me. I mean, right now it's #2 trending on Netflix. So you could disagree with me. I don't know. I mean, I could be alone in this one, but I just found myself kind of like bored halfway through. I knew how it was going to end, and I had trouble getting to the end. You know, I started kind of nodding off halfway through. I'm like, I've already seen this. I know what's going to happen. And again, the whole point of that movie at the end of it is like, you know, Pokemon shouldn't be fighting Pokemon is basically the message that they try to say. Like animal cruelty is bad is effectively what they're attempting to say. This time around, it was a lot more apparent than the original movie. And they're still like, let's put all of our Pokemon back in Pokeballs and let's still have them fight each other because clearly we learned no lesson about this because the lesson wasn't for the people, wasn't for Ash, Misty, or Brock. That's another thing with the movie too. It's like more or less at the end, they just came in and Men in Black flashed them and everyone forgot what the hell happened. And then it was like, oh, well, what are we doing here? Oh, let's go back on with our journey. It's like, none of this matters, you know? So it's, as far as stories go, it's always been kind of bad, but it's the aesthetic of watching a Pokemon movie in the theaters, a feature length one. I don't know. It'd be like if they took The Simpsons and they made it CG with a new voice cast, but tried retelling the first season, right? Like, or imagine them trying to take the monorail episode of The Simpsons and remake it in CG without the original voice cast, without Phil Hartman. You know, like that's what it would be like. It would just be this, God, what are you doing? Right? Like, wow, why is this here? It feels weird. You'd watch it out of curiosity, like you like watching a car crash, right? Or a train wreck. There would just be that morbid curiosity. But at the end of the day, you would still be like, no, I'm okay. That's kind of how I view this one. But then again, this could just be my near 38-year-old mentality, and it's not made for me. I can acknowledge that. I appreciate that it exists, but it just serves to me to emphasize how awesome the original was when it came out 20 years ago. And maybe that's making me the cynical old guy. The original is always better. But I think in this case, that's absolutely true. However, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I will talk to you guys about this all later. Have yourself a fantastic day. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, all that jazz. And I'll see you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.